Hey guitar people, this is my demo of the Seymour Duncan vintage Jazzmaster silencer set. To be upfront, Seymour Duncan did send these to me to make a video on, so keep that in mind, but I'm basically going to share a few clips of how they sound, go over some info, and then follow up with my personal thoughts at the end. If you just want to hear the sounds with no talking, I've put timestamps in the video description, and you've just heard what they sound like in the context of a mix, so now I'll share some isolated clips before we get to the specs. So as I said earlier, Seymour Duncan sent these to me, which is very exciting because I've actually been looking for a new set of pickups for my Jazzmaster for a while now. I have a modded American Pro 1 Jazzmaster, and this Seymour Duncan set replaced a set of Fender Pure Vintage 65s that had been in there for about 7 years now. These silencers come in two different versions, hot and vintage, and these are the vintage version, which I requested because I usually prefer my pickups with lower output since I tend to play more effects heavy styles of music, and I layer a lot of sounds like you heard in the intro song. Plus, I basically want my Jazzmaster to sound as close as possible to a classic Jazzmaster. Besides being vintage in voice, the most unique aspect of these is obviously the silent operation, and it's what Seymour Duncan is calling a triple coil design, which is unique to them, and that basically boils down to, as the name implies, 3 coils per pickup. There's 2 dual outer coils that cancel the hum, think like how a humbucker has 2 coils, and then a 3rd coil in the center that achieves the classic single coil sound that you associate with Jazzmasters. And I want to stress that these aren't humbuckers in the traditional sense. They are made to sound and feel like classic single coils that have the added benefit of being hum canceling. Also, interestingly, they have a 4-conductor wiring setup, so you could technically split the coils or do cool things like wire it for in and out of phase or series and parallel, which is pretty neat. I didn't choose to do anything fancy when wiring it up, so I'm just running them like traditional 2-conductor Jazzmaster pickups. In the next 2 clips I'm going to share, I'm going to run these pickups through a few pedals for the other pedal heads out there, and you can hear what these sound like through some effects. So my personal thoughts on these pickups is very positive. They're basically exactly what they say on the tin. I'm pretty picky when it comes to modding my guitars because I'm usually chasing after either a unique tone or something as close to classic sounding as I can get. And these without a doubt fall into the classic or vintage category. I've usually stayed away from silenced or noiseless pickups because my perception was that they tend to kind of dull the high end too much for my liking, and while I don't think these are the sparkliest, brightest pickups ever, they absolutely do sound like a classic mellow Jazzmaster to me. Output-wise, they're very similar in volume to the old vintage voice set I had in here, and EQ-wise, they're very lively with a classic wide-encompassing Jazzmaster sound. There's a really good jangly top-end bite that I love while not being too brittle and thin-sounding, and I think it's helping a lot that the mids and bass feel nicely balanced with that. In the neck position, these sound very warm and cozy, but retain a really nice clarity to them. Obviously, that's sweet for clean straight into the amp, but it's also full of character when overdriven. The bridge position is focused and cuts nicely as you'd expect from a good Jazzmaster, which is great for leads and pushing dirt pedals or a dirty amp. Sometimes on Jazzmasters, the bridge position can be a bit anemic sounding to me, but these have a really nice full mid-range without a harsh top end. The middle position is actually one of my favorites, and I like it a lot for rhythm parts and chording especially. I've set the pickup heights between the neck and bridge positions to be fairly similar in volume, and in the middle position it's a really nice blended sound, very open without any sort of weird peaks or odd resonant frequencies. So yeah, those are my thoughts, and that's my demo of the Seymour Duncan vintage Jazzmaster silencers. They really surprised me with how accurate they sound and feel in the vintage department, and I plan to keep these in my Jazzmaster going forward because I like them and I think they sound great. I've got one more clip to play at the end here, but that's basically the whole video, so I hope you enjoyed it and found it helpful. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.